Ekon,
Mm-hmm.
you were trying to determine whether this man has any spellcasting abilities. He likes to answer that question with boasts of like fantastic things he's done. Uh, and he describes the kinds of feats that you would not be unaccustomed to, like out on your adventures. Felling entire regiments of undead with the swat of a hand and a prayer. Uh, Taking control of the elements to make waters rise or fires flare up. You're not sure where the line is between his boasting and his actual power,
Mm-hmm.
but at one point in your conversations, he asks a few pointed questions about air and about the cathedral you've built. What do you tell him about the god that you worship?
I mean, air is the god of light and also everything, and he obviously is the shepherd of all humans and other well-meaning races.
One of
It's,
those
basically
gods.
boilerplate stuff.
Okay. I can't remember if the name is familiar or not. One of the, what's the word? A monotheistic god. Those ones are the worst. They're the ones that they think they really are in charge because they don't have anyone else around to prove that they're not. Celestial god, light and life and such. Crystal lighthouse and so on.
Yeah, actually.
Okay. I remember reading a line or two. That's the one you worship, huh? That's this
Yes.
cathedral in front of us.
Yep. Air has done all of this to some degree.
Well, it looks as
And
though he's done very well for himself.
It's not a god of the. What I want to say here, he's not a god of the crevices. It's not just anything that happens you can't explain. You blame on air. Air, both overtly and subtly, influences your life. Influences my life every day.
I had a god once. I either have forgotten him, or he has forgotten me. Roll an insight check.
You got it. It's insight of 26.
Okay. This is a man who has memories of controlling vast magical powers from several different sources. And you just about would believe that he could command the powers of his god the way you do yours.
Mm-hmm.
However, all of this power seems to have been disconnected from him. In his current state, you don't think he has access to any of it.
Okay.
Genie,
Huh?
you wanted to find out like what level of technology he's from.
Yep.
So you make some materials available to him. He finds a good shaft of wood. He planes it himself, finishes it, strings a bow, and spends some time conversing with you as he's fletching arrows. He's using flint arrowheads that he's collected himself. He walked the woods, he found the rocks, he brought them back, he chipped them down into arrowheads. Watching him work, as much as he possibly can, he insists on doing every step of himself, and he insists on using as raw materials as he can get his hands on. He describes the world where he was the Duke as a pastoral one, very much like this, where they would have had mills and simple machines, wagons and things, but assuredly not things like gunpowder or steam engines or whatnot.
Or the up-a-majig.
Or the up-a-majigger, right. Where you're from, these, especially the steam engine, are built magically as much as they are mechanically. His world that he's originally from, he describes it as being more primitive in both aspects. However, he was not the Duke there forever, and he describes in his lifetime seeing machinery and levels of technology that far outstrip anything you've seen, up to and including your walk through Castle Avernus. He describes walking through the center of a machine so vast that you can see its workings spread out in all directions around you.
Like, Jeannie's listening to this story, and she's just, like, holding her breath. Because this is the most fascinating thing she has ever heard in her entire life.
He himself does not have a lot of use for technology. He's definitely not an engineer. He can build simple things. He has no problem making his own simple weaponry or tailoring his own clothes. But things like the clockwork mechanisms that Jeannie makes, or her like artificer things, he doesn't admit to it, because that would be admitting weakness. But these are things he doesn't have a lot of time for. So in that way, you kind of find the limit of his knowledge when it comes to magic. He's not big on building magical devices. He likes magical devices that he can use.
While I got him here, I'm going to ask him if he recognizes, if I am allowed to ask him a second question, to show him that spellbook.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Victor. He speaks very wistfully about the world he's from, his time as the Duke on Oerth. You're not sure exactly how much of it is just rose-tinted glasses and how much of it was he really is from this idyllic place. You learn that he had a wife and 2 sons. And he has stories about them, as any father would. And that something his sons did caused him to leave that place. He returned to it, and he has more stories about his sons as grown men. But nothing in the intervening time. He didn't watch them grow up. And he's not shy about telling you that he's very regretful of having missed those years.
Does he know why he didn't watch them grow up?
No. And he doesn't think that the intervening time is a gap in his knowledge. He thinks he was gone from that place and then returned to it when they were men. Other than that, I mean, I'll ask this. As players, you all are familiar with what Oerth is, yes? It's one of the earliest D&D game settings,
Yes.
which is more or less just standard fantasy, whatever you need it to be.
Yeah, it's like, great.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
Well, there is a
Let's go with
spaceship, but
There's a lot of very specific things about Oerth that are very weird, but yes, it is the long-time default setting.
it is a little more interesting than Forgotten Realms, I think.
Where the world, where the name Greyhawk comes from.
Yeah, Oerth is the plane that contains Greyhawk and Blackmoor.
Yes. So you get a lot of stories just along that end of things. He kind of describes, but he always describes it in very pleasant memories.
And does he know how old he is?
He feels like, I mean, he tells you that he's in his 60s. And you can see that he looks like a man in his 60s. He's strong and he's muscular, but he's also, you can see he's very weathered. I'll leave it up. It's up to you whether you want to believe him or not. But that's what he seems to think. Strahd told you that the man was very ancient indeed, possibly older than Aslan himself. And Aslan's been around for centuries.
Yeah. Well, he also didn't say how long he was trapped with the crystal, so.
Evie,
Yes?
What do you reveal to the Duke about the mists, if anything?
I mean, I don't kind of feel any reason to hold that back from him.
He doesn't have any specific knowledge about the mists or having crossed them. When you describe what they are, that the mists rise up and it is dangerous to cross through them, and you don't always end up at the same place when you do. Has Evie sussed out the connection between, say, Evelyn and the mists, or Strahd and the mists in Barovia?
She has suspicions. She doesn't think Aslan... I mean, it's pretty clear to her that Aslan is not from this place. We're not from this place. People come into this world, and she doesn't know that it's called Ravenloft. She would just probably call it the Land of the Mists. And there's Darkon, and there's a couple other places beyond it. We only know the names of a few. But you come into this place, and it doesn't seem easy to leave.
So the Duke doesn't know the name Darkon, doesn't know the name Aslan, and doesn't seem to have specific knowledge of the mists at all. But he seems very amenable to the idea of being in a place that opens into many other places. Make me an insight check.
Sure. That's a 21.
Okay. What seems to give him pause is your description of the mists as more or less being one way. You cross into this place from somewhere else, but then you cannot leave it again. And he asks you if this is your Aslan's doing.
Evie says, I don't think so. I haven't figured out exactly what's going on there. The mists themselves seem to be kind of malevolent. They seem to have a will. And we didn't bring you here. We don't know how you got here, but I'm sorry to say you're as stuck here as the rest of us for the time being until we figure out a way out.
We're in a cage.
It's something like that.
Very well. It's not the first cage I've been in.
And I assure you there's a lot of people here, some very powerful figures who are looking for a way out, but I think some of them have been looking for a very long time and have not had any success.
He gives you an assurance that if there is a way out, he'll find it.
Oh, so will we.
Edmont.
Yes, Brick Road?
Give me an insight check, please.
An insight check, you say?
You can assume this is after a couple days of rest and you don't have to make the check at disadvantage.
I'm very grateful. 22, yes, 22.
The crystal that the man was trapped in has ceased to exist. It evaporated after you performed the ritual and broke him free.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a lot of details about who or what might have trapped him there or how he had come to be taken into Barovia. But once in a while, he doesn't shy away from the topic. And he's not a man that's big on changing the subject. He will talk for hours on any subject. But
I'm sure he will.
Once in a while, on the subject of this crystal that he was imprisoned in and how he got there, you're pretty sure you see fear cross his face. And it's the only time you ever see fear cross his face. Whatever or whoever put him in that crystal, there's nothing he fears more in the world.
Well, if anything, the error. I'm not really one for my brother. He's the one who's more religiously minded on it, but I do take some comfort in error. So I suggest you talk to Ekon about it.
And that probably is what spurred him to talk to Ekon about his monotheistic deity.
Yeah.
His mono god, if you will. That makes him sound like he's the god of mono, which is terrible.
No, it's a god that can't be the god that can't be used more than once around.
Or the god that plays to like both ears at the same time.
These days, it's just tap symbol god.
He's like a single color. He requires a single mana, a single color of mana.
Brick, at some point, if possible, Victor wants to ask if he remembers anything while he was inside the crystal.
Nothing. He is aware that he was trapped there for some length of time. And that's about it.
Could have been a day, could have been Centuries.
You notice that he exhibits some strange behavior in the village.
Oh, really?
The day after you brought him here, the first days, you find him early in the morning out in the village making barrels by hand. I don't know what the name is of your barrel maker in town, but there's somebody in town whose job it is to make barrels, and he works there all morning, takes his coin, and immediately turns around and starts buying things with it. Things that he needs. Things he could have just asked you for. You find him doing this throughout the week, performing this odd job or that. He will muck out a stable. He will stock an oven. He will knit. He will repair clothing. He will repair fences. He'll chop wood. Anything that needs doing.
He's loath to accept charity.
Evie, can we keep him?
By the end of the week, he brings Evie 50 pieces of silver to pay for the food and the clothing that you've given him. And then he asks what his room and board is going to be going forth.
I don't know what the going rate for lodging in a noble estate would be. I assume usually you're not usually charged for that sort of thing.
I am your guest then.
That was my intended arrangement. If you are uncomfortable accepting that charity, we can make some kind of arrangement.
So this is
Something my
charity.
people-
I'm not your guest. I am a pitiable soul in need of food and comfort and warmth that can be provided only by House Veritas.
No, that is clearly not the case.
And your reasons are truly altruistic, I take it. These questions of magics that I have, or gods that I've known, or worlds that I've walked, these amount to simple curiosity.
I think there is probably a great deal we can do for each other.
Very well. What would you have me do then?
What you've been doing throughout the town, assisting my people with their work. If you do that and cause no trouble, I believe that we can maintain our current arrangement.
He seems extremely amenable to that arrangement.
I think that works for me.
So he spends most of his daylight hours working out in the village. In fact, the conversations you have with him over the week are you probably on his terms, wherever he happens to be working, posting holes or seeding grain or tending to goats or whatever needs doing.
Victor will regale him with tales of Tech as he's doing the goats.
Sounds like you had great love for this goat herder.
He was my one true friend.
And you lost him.
He was taken from us.
I do not understand your fascination with Tech.
The man was murdered.
Taken's a good word for it, yes.
He was what? What was that?
This
Taken
man
is
was
a good
murdered.
word for it, yes.
Well, taken is the word Victor used. The man is assuming he means murdered.
Yes, Tech was murdered.
And you know who has done this thing.
No, we have suspicions but no proof. We have exhausted all legal means of recourse.
You are bound by the laws of your king, Evelyn.
No, we are bound by the laws of our justice to ensure that we keep peace within this realm.
He seems to think on this a great deal.
Evie does not wish to go against the laws that she herself sets and be seen as a hypocrite.
He ends the conversation with you. Well, he ends the particular topic with you by offering no more than to go to the public house and drink an ale and toast to your lost friend Tech.
Sure, sounds great.
That night, while you guys are having dinner, you've become accustomed to him not sitting at your table for the evening meal. He prefers to take his wages out into the town and eat amongst the people. But tonight, He kind of barges his way into your dining hall. Who all is present at a typical evening meal?
Edmont.
The 6 of us, Tenny, probably most of our retainers, I'd imagine.
Okay.
And Lugrin probably.
He's
Well,
not out drinking.
Lugrin's either
No,
that.
not Lugrin. Abernathy.
Abernathy and his
Yes,
sister.
probably right.
Trias, yeah.
Lugrin is welcome, of course. He's
Oh,
just
yeah,
not
of course.
usually there. He's...
Yeah.
Okay. The Duke barges in. A man was murdered in your village over the winter.
This is true.
And you know who did it.
We do not.
Why not?
We have suspicions and nothing more.
So you know who did it.
We have no proof of who has done it.
But you know who did it, nonetheless.
Under the law of air, we do not know who did it.
The law of air seems to not be serving you then. You have murderers living in your village.
The problem, sir, is that suspicious people suspicion does not equal guilt. And that means that even if we're like 60% sure, what if we're wrong? Because
What if you're
punishment for
wrong?
such-
What happens then?
Then we've killed an innocent man.
And your god air will punish you for this. He will rain down fire from the heavens. He will torch your crops. What?
If we were wrong and were to punish the wrong person for it, we would be no better than the murderer.
And when another murder occurs, what then?
Well, at that point, hopefully we will do... This isn't a hypothetical. I don't argue philosophy in the realm of hypotheticals. There's an actual person's life who would be ended if we were to act unilaterally in this.
And this man was your friend. He asked Victor.
Yes, he was.
The rest of you knew him not.
Only in passing.
He seems upset. He seems angry, but focused this time.
You misunderstand. Like, we really do want to know who we want to solve this, but
What?
Jeannie is the heart. Like, she looks very frustrated because she's like not the best person to explain this, because truthfully she's like fine with these guys. She doesn't want to explain that she doesn't. The only reason she hasn't taken these men out back and shot them is because it would make her sister sad.
Right. And you
Does
know
she
what the
even know
villagers
now?
say. Those of them who will talk. Yes, there was a murder. Nobody knows who it was. Perhaps it was ghosts or ghouls or some other nonsense from the woods. They think monsters live out there.
Werewolf.
Well, they're not entirely wrong about that.
So how do you know your friend wasn't taken by monsters? Why do you place suspicion on men in the village?
That's the issue. We don't know for certain.
Well, we looked there first due to past grievances between the parties.
Victor will explain the history of how Tech was met and how the men were initially punished and why they were the primary suspects.
And also just the smugness from them.
The
Did
more
not
you
help.
tell, the more information you give him, the more details about this situation, the more he's convinced that you know who has done it and are refusing to act. You know who it was, but you have confounded yourselves with rules and what-if situations that have paralyzed you into inaction.
So let us say that, for the sake of argument, you were the Duke of this land. You sat in our Duchess's chair. What would you have us do?
How many men were involved?
Was it 3?
I think it was 4.
It was 4 total. 3 and then
4,
the ringleader guy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Take the 4 of them, put them into a pillory. Eventually, one of them will turn on the others. Pardon that one, execute the other 3.
Genie kind of just shrugs at that and looks at Evie. Yeah.
I don't think we have any pillories. When we saw pillories in being used in the Squelcher Lords, we thought that was like a really barbaric practice, right? Like that was totally not something that would ever happen in Fernisco.
Not in Brennan. In smaller villages, further and further away from Brennanine, perhaps. I mean, when there's no other way to enforce the law in your little backwater that you're in charge of, you use the materials you have. But no, you guys would have never done such a thing. You had working courts and good dungeons underneath your church where sunlight never shines. That's what I would do. And you wouldn't have to ask what I would do the next time somebody murdered in my village, because it wouldn't happen a second time. At that,
Certainly not.
he puts his cap back on his head and turns and leaves your presence.
Victor will establish a telepathic link with him and tell him thank you. Once he's left the room.
Okay. He tells you he doesn't like talking this way. And he's not going to do it from now on. If it's all the same to you.
Victor mentally nods in agreement and severs the connection.
To that end, he's picking up Darkanese very, very quickly.
He's got a point, Evie, but it seems like it's too late to just arrest them.
I mean, not really. It's really not, like Genie says.
If anything, this is basically our last opportunity
It's
we
like
have enough?
to make an example of these men, if any example is to be made.
Genius,
here's
we
the-
have
Or it
interrogated
is
the
or will
goats.
already have been made for us.
Here's the problem with that is they seem to have already come to a consensus that as long as none of us talk, we will walk away. So I'm not entirely convinced that this plan would work.
We could throw them in the same dungeon as Edmont when it's his time of the month.
This so okay.
Wow.
Are we doing this? Are we like?
So here's what I would like to do.
Are you really considering doing the?
That's not
Edmond
good.
almost looks offended at that.
What does Ekon have?
I would like to cast a divination, and I would like to ask Air what the result would be of executing one of these men publicly over the next 7 days.
To what end? Are you trying to ask Air, like, in order to assuage your guilt in case you have the wrong man? Or are you asking, like, in more practical terms of, like, what will the feeling of the village be going forward?
Yeah, to make sure that to see if basically the first one to figure out, like, does this seem like it's the righteous action under we have the right evidence.
If you were to execute a man for the murder of Tech, publicly or no, even if you were just to announce that a man had been executed, if that's how you choose to do it, it would seem to stabilize the ideas of law and order in the village. Right now, this murder is seen as something it's fading away from memory. Not many people cared about it when it first happened. But the idea that somebody could just murder in your village and the Duchess will do nothing, it also seems like that's an idea that could take hold if it were to happen again. So if you were to publicly execute somebody, it would send a clear message that lawbreakers will be punished in Silverbow. that would be a net benefit for projecting law and order in the village, if that's your goal.
All right. So what he said about getting them to turn on each other, I think we could do that.
They seem to be in solidarity. That was like one of the things that came up. Like,
You separate them. We never let them in the same room. We ask them the questions, and
You tell them the other ones have already
yeah,
turned on them.
I don't know if they believe that.
doesn't
We have to-
matter.
You have to let them stew a while.
Given how far this has gone, I would say bring him in the dungeon. I'll cast Zone of Truth. I'll also cast another spell that'll make it harder for them to resist it.
Well,
I'm
now
all-
you're just breaking. Now you're just breaking your own rules.
You're right, I am. Normally my rules would work. For some reason they didn't this time. This will be an official investigation.
We have room in the dungeon for all four of them, right?
Oh, yeah.
Especially since Ekon's been like expanding the dungeon with
Oh, yeah.
freaking shaped stone for 6 weeks.
You guys go
For
down
4
there, and it's
months.
just 400 rooms. You have a pretty expansive dungeon area and a whole unused catacomb.
It's like the first time we all step down there, we look at Ekon and go, "Are you an ant?"
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm okay with this idea. Just put them all in the dungeon and see if one of them cracks. I don't know how long that would take, though. That could take weeks.
Do we arrest them publicly, or do we kidnap them in the middle of the night?
It would be
Uh,
better for the rule of law if they were arrested publicly, whether they're let go or not.
Yeah, because we interrogated them before, but they were never officially arrested.
We
right?
just all we do is we just declare that we have found more evidence to suggest that they're guilty of a crime, and that we're doing the investigation. And then we put them in the jail. We let them stew, and then we do the thing. We do the thing from cop shows where it's like, your buddy. So your buddy told us everything,
Yeah, let's do it.
and so we don't need you anymore. Your execution will be in 3 days.
So you have the main guy, and then he had his three his three yes men, basically.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
These men, we talked about how they had volunteered for Abernathy's militia. Yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
they were
Yes.
among the
They were.
first. Okay.
Yeah, have Abernathy arrest him.
Give me an insight check, one for the party, so one of you can make the check.
Who's got the best?
I got a +6.
+9.
Plus 10.
I also like an intimidate check. Again, one from the party.
I think that's also me.
Can Orson intimidate?
It's 2.
Orson can intimidate if he wants.
I don't think Orson is. Is he trained in that? Let me see. Hold on.
I'll let you either use strength or charisma for the intimidate check.
My intimidate is +6.
Orson's is plus. It'd be +7.
I'm okay with letting him do it then.
Okay.
I'll do it. None of this is an advantage or anything.
I,
Is it grant advantage somehow?
yeah, like this is a thing we would be prepared for. So, I would
Enhanced
cast.
ability on both.
Yeah, I'll cast one. You cast the other.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay,
yeah,
so
both advantage. You get advantage,
All right.
and then you also can take a +5 on. Both of them can take +5s on this from Flash of Genius. Destil, you roll for
I got a
Yeah,
24. I got a 24 in insight.
What's Orson's bonus?
+7.
And we're just
And then-
automatically inciting this, so 25.
On intimidate? Okay. So new evidence has come to light. You're bringing the 4 guys back in. This time they're not going down into your interrogation chamber together. They're going to separate cells in your dungeon.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Evie.
Mhm.
Your worry was that there was solidarity between these men.
Yep.
And one of them had assured the other 3, like, nothing bad's going to happen. In fact, that was kind of also the gist that Edmont got when he was shadowing them out to the pub. Today, though, one of the men looks shakier than the others.
Mm-hmm.
And you catch a moment where the ringleader of them shoots him a confident but somewhat angry glance. So you have the four men down in your dungeons.
We're gonna single out the one who seems shaky.
Okay.
That's our guy. We're gonna work him.
Now, when you say work him, are you letting Jeannie go in there with like red hot pinchers and?
Genie does not torture people yet.
Last time you had this man, you told him.
I told him that if he was disrespectful to my sister, I would set fire to his balls with my firebolt sparrow. That's not torture. That's retaliation.
So when you say you work this man over violently,
Well, not violently. We're gonna. I mean,
Emotionally.
we can do this good cop, bad cop. Like I can go in there and say, you can tell me what happened, and this will go easier for you. Like those guys can't help you anymore. The only person who can help you now is me, but I can only help you if you tell me what happened.
who's bad cop in this
Bad cop
situation?
the bad cop is Edmont with his whip.
Wow. Okay. Like, are you whipping him or
No, not yet.
like trying
He's
to
just in the room with the whip.
implying that you've already whipped the other three or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Edmont, give me an intimidation check. Strength intimidation. And your success on this check will influence Evie's persuasion check.
In preparation for this, can we give them the advantages and stuff the magical advantages?
I'm going to say no because this is a good cop, bad cop situation, so it's just the two of them down there right now.
What I
Or
mean
what's
is
not
like
a
before
success.
they go in. Yeah.
Seems like a bad cop, bad cop.
Let's limit it to just the two of them in the cell for now.
4 blips out of success.
4
Hold on, don't do
blips.
that yet. You can take my reroll first.
Okay. Thank you for that.
This is why I have that ability.
Oh, look at that.
Hey.
I believe it's going to be a, you said strength intimidation?
Strength intimidation.
19.
19.
That's a natural 20. That's a crit with the new rules, right?
It's an automatic success, no matter what you were doing.
Oh.
Evie, make a persuasion check at advantage, because this guy believes that if he doesn't say what you want to hear, Edmont is going to whip him. And
I don't want him to tell me what I want to hear. I want him to tell me the truth.
Right, but what you're convinced of is he's going to tell you what you want to hear, because that's how torture works.
Okay, this is at advantage. Come back here. Or... Oh, come on.
Well, what was that?
I don't know. Okay, so that's going to be a 22 on persuasion.
Okay. Eventually, he does break. But he doesn't give you the answer you were expecting. You were expecting something like, yeah, we rolled him in the goat muck. We didn't like him. So-and-so was in charge. We just did what he said. What he actually tells you is... Did I ever give this ringleader guy a name?
No, I don't think so.
I think you did.
He tells you that he was told if they did it, if they took care of Tech while you guys were out of town, that they wouldn't be caught. And he didn't want to go along with it. He became convinced after he was magicked.
By who?
He tells you of a beautiful forest maiden, a magical creature who lives far out in the woods. And he and his friends, led by this ringleader guy, who knew about her, went out to meet her. That they each lay with her over the course of a night. And they each received her blessing that they would be able to resist whatever magic you laid upon them to tell the truth about the situation. As long as the murder was committed with the stiletto that she provided them, they could never be caught as long as none of them talked. And they could not be magically compelled to do so.
where can we find this forest maiden?
He describes a place out in the woods and the certain circumstances under which they met with her. To your satisfaction, like you're convinced you could find this place based on his instruction.
Okay.
This is a very fanciful story.
It is.
And I'm going to leave it up to you whether you believe him or not. But he has told you that this is what happened. And this is why you couldn't use magic to make them tell the truth.
Well, we did hear someone heard a woman's voice. This kind of matches up with the facts.
With it.
I don't find it that hard to believe that there's some kind of mysterious evil creature out in the forest.
Not just that, I don't find it. It could just be that Tech slept with a wrong nymph and then pissed her off.
I mean, that's definitely a possibility. So, I say, is this magical ability to resist truth, is that still in effect now?
He doesn't know. He hasn't been tested since.
Would you like to investigate that now with me?
He keeps glancing at Edmont. If I confess, can I... I mean, will it hurt long?
Let's not think about that right now.
And you get the sense that it's all this guy can think about.
Look, as long as you do what I tell you, then we're not going to hurt you.
So your goal now is to cast Zone of Truth and see if he resists it?
Yeah, I want him to... I'm going to tell him, do not resist this magic.
Okay.
Then I'll cast Zone of Truth on him.
And he is able to lie to you under the auspice of your Zone of Truth.
Okay, so...
And it feels to you as though he has resisted the magic.
Okay, so somebody did cast some kind of magic on. So I think this story is at least worth investigating. We're going to go to this place that he has described and see if there's a magical forest nymph there.
We need to have this discussion not in his presence.
Yeah, I'm not talking about this in front of him.
So you can leave him in the cell and go run it by your other companions.
Yeah, he's going to just stew for a while. If when we pass judgment, he's going to get off lighter than the others, I think.
The other three guys, by the way, give you nothing. And the ringleader, he's as smug as ever. In fact, he wants to get back to work, is keeping your village safe as part of the...
You're going to stay right where you're at, buddy.
Guys, I'm going to step away for 2 minutes if you want to start discussing your next plan of action. I'm going to get a drink from the fridge. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I mean,
When Victor hears the info, he thinks that Tech may have just made a forest nymph really jealous.
That kind of jives with what we've heard about Tech.
If that's the case, then it's a tragedy, but still, it's no excuse for murder.
Yep, they still killed him, but it's maybe not a death sentence in that case.
So, what do we think would be the appropriate punishment? Do we put them to death or do we banish them?
I mean, so the story. Let me lay out the story as I heard it and understood it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so the four of them were told by a forest nymph to kill Tech and that they wouldn't be caught.
I don't know that she told them to do it, but she seemed to give them the tools to get away with it.
They gave, well, as long as they killed Tech with the stiletto.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it sounded like the forest nymph asked them to kill Tech, and we can verify with Brick if that's what the intention of the story was, and that he said magicked, the nymph magicked him, but I couldn't quite tell if he meant magicked in the sense that like magical coercion, or magicked in the sense of that here's this buff that prevents you from being Zone of Truth.
I think it's the latter.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, one of the latter. We'd want to confirm this story with the other three of them.
But no, we're not going to talk. I don't think we want to say anything to them yet.
I think we want to
wanna
go
look
to the
at-
dungeon and go and find out what we can about this forest nymph.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to see if we can get the other three to admit to it without telling them what actually happened.
Okay.
Let's see if at least two of them tell the same story.
So we're going to repeat this interrogation process with two of the more men?
I don't think we need to say anything more to them. I think we want to confirm that the forest nymph exists first.
Okay. So we're heading out on an
Agreed.
excursion into the woods.
Yes.
Okay. What time of day are you making this excursion? You were told that they met with this nymph back in autumn under a certain phase of the moon, which coincidentally will be coming up here within the week.
Not full moon cry, I hope, right?
Under cover of darkness.
Let's do what they did.
Yeah, to try and match the conditions.
So they arrived at this spot in the woods where they met with her just after the end of twilight, and their business with her was concluded just before dawn.
Sounds like it was a busy night.
I mean, there was 4 of them.
Jeannie looks at Orson and says, "Keep it in your pants while we're around the nymph."
Do we have any magic to resist charms? I think we might need that.
Not till I gain. I think I gotta gain 1 more level.
Okay.
I don't know if clerics get intellect fortress.
Then maybe Evie and Jeannie should meet with her alone with the guys nearby, but not readily apparent.
I can cast Pass Without Trace on the guys.
I mean, it's 2022. We're all progressive here. Do you honestly think I'm going to have a nymph be limited by gender?
It might work on Evie, I'm not going to lie.
If a nymph's
Or
seduction
reputation.
abilities are truly supernatural, it shouldn't matter what's in your pants, man.
Is this going to be the sex dungeon for the campaign?
You got to the clearing. You arrive, and it's almost a full day's journey from the village. You're kind of at the furthest edges of where a lot of the laborers were felling trees and taking them back, because they were instructed not to fell the entirety of the forest. So sometimes they had to go pretty far out afield. And you assume that's how these particular laborers found this particular place. It's a very beautiful little clearing out in the woods. It's a natural clearing. It's not filled with stumps of trees that they have felled. You can hear the burbling of a brook nearby, and one of the trees is larger and darker than the rest. And just after sunset, just as the twilight fades away and the moonlight takes over, the first thing you notice is that the moonlight illuminates this particular little grove much more brightly than you would expect, to the point where you could almost see the streaks of it coming out of the sky. And you hear the sound of faraway crying, like a baby squalling, coming from the direction of the dark tree, which would be this one, at the right side of the map.
Okay, that's suspicious as hell. Let's not go near that one.
Well, go ahead and place yourselves where you're going to be. These are 5-foot squares.
Where are we entering from?
Any direction you want.
Okay.
So you said this tree?
Yes, that's the one that's the largest, and then it's the darkest of them. When I say the darkest, I mean the actual bark of the tree is a darker shade of color than the surrounding ones.
You would say it's a pretty dark wood?
Is that what I would say?
Maybe.
Should we abandon hope?
Yeah, I think we're going to give this tree a wide berth.
Okay.
I mean, do dryads exist in the area where we're from?
In
I don't think
mythologies,
anything exists.
So okay, so Jeannie is gonna be a wood nymph, spooky tree.
there are lots of stories from the far western woods of the Republic of people laying with wood nymphs and things.
So,
Yeah, this is like the kind of story that
Fairy
goes in the
story.
YA genre, as we discussed.
Right. And over the course of the time, you hear this babe squalling in that direction.
I mean, I'm going to go. I'm sorry.
I mean, we
No,
are here to
Genie-
investigate.
It's Genie. Wait, it's obviously trap.
Well, then I'll spring it. And you save me. And then she knocks on it.
Damn it, Jeannie.
She walks up to the door, to the tree, and she knocks on it like a door.
What is your passive perception, Genie?
Not very high. Passive perception. I think it's
Should be on your
11.
character sheet. 11. Ekon, what's
Yeah.
yours?
Ekon's passive perception is, I believe, 19.
So
Yes.
you notice then, Ekon, you're actually a little further away then. And you were the second in line, so I'm going to move everybody else back a little bit.
Yep.
Jeannie gets up next to the tree. Ekon, you notice in the spot where the moonlight streams down through the branches and leaves of the tree, you see the outline of a woman cradling a baby to her breasts underneath the tree. Jeannie's completely oblivious to it.
Goddamn, is that Tic-Tics?
And Jeannie's just about to walk up to this tree and bump right into this creature. And you think that's probably a bad idea.
Yeah, I'll just, Genie,
And she stops and turns around and says, "What?"
look at the tree. Look harder.
Jeannie looks up and down.
Make a perception check. I'll let anybody else make this perception check as well at this point.
Okay.
That's a
So,
4.
while Genie's stopping, I am going to cast a spell.
What spell?
I'm going to raise my holy symbol over my head and cast Aura of Purity.
That's another spell
You
I've
got a
never
19
seen
in
cast before.
perception.
Okay.
6 on perception for
That
Edmont.
lasts 10 minutes. Creatures within 30 feet of me cannot become diseased, resist poison, and have advantage on saves against blindness, deafness, fright, paralysis, poison, or charm.
That's a big spell, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's really, really good against this, whatever this is.
So those of you who topped 15 on that perception check, is that everybody?
No,
Not
I
Med,
rolled
not
a
Edmont.
4.
You rolled a 4. If you top 15, you can see the woman, but you can only see her in the streaks of moonlight coming from between the branches. She lifts her head to regard Ekon as he casts this spell and he holds his holy symbol high and says a prayer. And she speaks to you in Darkanese, in a voice everybody can hear. So, Jeannie, it almost sounds to you like the tree itself is speaking.
Jeannie says, Jeannie kind of jumps back a little bit in surprise.
I take you then to be the men and women of House Veritas.
Is that Tic-Tics? Victor points at the thing she's holding.
The woman is rocking back and forth. She's sitting on a large gnarled root from the tree. She shakes her head. Says, I do not know Tech.
The goat herder.
Ah. I suppose you could say that I know of him.
Go on.
Why?
Do you have him killed, or did they ask you for help to kill him?
A thing was asked for. Payment was rendered. This is all well and proper, yes?
What was the payment?
What was ask?
They had a problem. I had a solution.
Murder is not a solution to anything in my duchy.
I murdered no one.
No, but you assisted in the murder.
Am I guilty?
Hold
Why
on.
did you,
Evie, let's get the whole story first.
why did you help them?
I help lots of people. I have helped lots of people.
Can we take a step back and start from the beginning?
You may step back as far as you like.
These men approached you. What did they look like? Can you describe them?
I could.
Will you?
She seems to think for a moment. No, I don't think I will. That would be improper.
So, some men approached you with a problem. What was their problem? Did they wish somebody injured?
What are you asking of me?
We have it on authority that you provided a weapon which was used to kill a member of our village. This is not acceptable.
So you ask for an apology.
First, we wish to know exactly what happened.
So you wish to know the process.
We wish for you to tell us exactly what these men ask of you when they approached, what you did in response, what was demanded of payment, and if you saw them again, and what you know of the goat herder.
You ask of a story, then. A thing is requested. Payment shall be rendered. What do you offer?
Victor will glance back at Evie.
Evie is not really inclined to offer her anything.
Do you tell her that?
What's the general price range of such a transaction?
She tells Victor that as payment, she will lay with him. Upon
Evie says no.
rendering such payment, she will tell him the story he asks for. When Evie interjects and says no, she casually glances at Evie and back to Victor again. Does this woman speak for you?
Not necessarily, however.
Yes.
Victor looks back at the rest of them with a, I'm not so sure about this look.
I will speak to you no more until you send your mother away. And then she turns her head back to her baby.
Victor will go gather everyone in a group to discuss.
And as you move more than 15 or 20 or so feet away from the tree, you can no longer see the woman. You can hear the baby kind of burbling away, having calmed down.
I do not think getting further enmeshed in this creature's affairs is a good idea.
How badly do we want to know the truth? I mean,
I think we already know. We already know enough.
We know that she's real. We know that this is real. My question now is, if we leave this, mysterious woodland creature here who is seducing the men of our village and helping them commit crimes, I don't think we want to let that stand, but I'm not sure what we can do to a creature like this.
Genie will walk back up to the creature, to the nymph, and ask her, I have a question.
You ask it of like the space next to her where she actually is, because you still can't see her.
Right.
You return to the tree. What do you ask?
What is the purpose of, why do you want this as payment?
And she's cradling her baby. They grow up so fast.
Is that child the son of, or is that child the offspring of one of the men who previously came here?
Is that what you wish to know? A thing is asked. Payment shall be rendered. From you I could take, I believe, she thinks for a moment, 3 years.
3 years of what?
That's it, just 3 years. 3 years that you have will now become mine. Payment is rendered, and I will answer your questions.
That's...
Do we
I'm
hear
not-
this?
I'm not opposed to this arrangement, but here's the problem. It's like I really don't care about that question, so I'm going to decline that. If I think of a better question, I'll get back to you.